and welcome back to Bit by Bit, here for another coffee break. And today we're discussing the timeline for when you know a game's good or not. So how long into a game does it take you to decide whether or not it's good and worth playing? What games have subverted that expectation that you have set up? Can you ever really say a game is good before you finish it or bad before you finish it? So I guess I'll start things off. I feel like in general, people are like really conservative with saying whether or not a game is good or not until they're done with it. And I feel the same way with that, only because I feel like, well, if you don't play through all of it, you don't really know what the experience is like, so you can't really say anything about it, is part of what I feel. And one reason that I really feel that as of late is I played this game called Severed, which I recently reviewed. It's on PS Vita, DS, Wii U, and I think one other thing. Oh, iPad. It's what originally came for like the iPad and the Vita.
Oh, wow.
So I was playing that, and I really, really didn't like it for a really long time, and I was really only playing it through the whole way to review it, because I don't feel right about like reviewing a game I haven't beaten. Mm-hmm. So I was playing through it, the gameplay was pretty monotonous, the art was nice, but I'm like, oh, it's whatever. And then I got to the end. And I'm not going to get into details on the story, because I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but like the ending was so powerful to me that I'm like, wow, this was worth like everything else in the game. Like everything was leading up to this, and now I finally feel like the significance of what I was doing in the game, rather than just like the repetitive mechanics of it. So by the end of the game, I like recommend it to everybody to at least check it out, because it was such like a powerful experience I had. So that was one example of for me a game that at first I thought it wasn't that good, and then I felt like it was good. And then I had the opposite effect kind of with Recore. So when I first started playing it, I'm like, this is pretty good, it's pretty enjoyable, and a lot of people report about Recore, for the few people that did play it, a lot of people say like, oh, these first few hours are pretty good, and I'm just like, just wait, it's not gonna last, or at least or maybe it just gets old. I'm not really, there's a couple problems with Recore in my opinion, but yeah, so I think it's always a little too soon to tell, because you never know where it's going, and I think even if a game's good, like it could do something that will like ruin everything. Kind of like any other relationship or dynamic. Like, you never really know. Maybe I just have trust issues. I don't know. But, yeah, so I feel like you gotta kind of wait till it's all said and done. And especially because I think games can surprise you sometimes, too, like with what they do with their mechanics. Like, they go through different stages, maybe. Like, oh, the first hour is really focused on maybe, like, linear platforming, but the second, like, act of the game involves, like, an extra mechanic that you didn't have before, and now you have a more appreciation for it. Things like that I think can happen as well. But so what are your feelings on it? Do you think you can ever say like, okay, I know this game isn't worth anything, or yeah, I know it's good, or do you always have to see it through all the way?
I guess for me, it's not even so much of like I need to play it all the way to know it's good. It's like, for me, is it worth continuing this experience? And I might even be able to like recognize on an intellectual level that maybe this game gets better, but it's not worth my time, because like, you had your chance and you ruined it. Like, so I might be able to accept if someone's like, if I quit a game early and someone's like, no, why'd you quit early? It got better 20 hours later, I might be like, okay, cool, I believe you, but I don't want to waste 20 hours getting to the good part, you know what I mean? So for me, that's kind of where it comes down to. And I think part of that is because a lot of the games that I play and grew up playing were not games with an end. Like I was, and this is like on my mind lately because I've been getting back into like farming simulators, but I really enjoyed like the Harvest Moon games and stuff growing up, and those don't really have a necessary end. Like some of them, like people count the endings, oh, you got married, you had a kid, it's like, yeah, but the game keeps going, like it doesn't really stop. And so for me, I only played those games as long as they were fun, and as soon as something stops being fun, I stopped playing it. And I've been trying to do that a little bit less lately because I also play games that have, plot lines and definite beginnings and ends and that type of thing, and I did when I was a kid too, but that's why I never finished anything, because as soon as I would stop enjoying something, I just stop doing it, and that becomes problematic in certain ways, so I'm trying not to do it as much, but I hold by my stance that you shouldn't have to play something all the way through, even if it is a good game. Like, I guess, like, one that comes to mind for me is Dragon Age Origins, which I recently did play. I tried to play that game like 3 times before I actually played it, and I would get through like the beginning act of it with like a different character, and I did this like months and years apart from each other, and every time I was like, this game sucks. I hate this game. And then I went back and I did play it all the way through, partly because my roommate was playing it, and so I wanted to play it too because we wanted to talk about it, and because I had played Dragon Age Inquisition and loved it, and knew that there were some choices I could go back and sort of change the path of Inquisition if I wanted to play it again. And having beat Dragon Age Origins, it's still a bad game, but I'm glad I played it. Like, it's still not a good game.
What's wrong with it?
Wow. Okay, there's like there's a lot wrong with Origins. The fighting system's just like really, it's just gross. Like it doesn't, like sometimes you'll be able to beat something really easily, and then like the very next enemy you see will like wreck you every time, and you're like, why is this happening? To the point where I truly, this is the only time you'll ever hear me say this, I'm positive of it. I truly recommend anyone who wants to play Dragon Age Origins for the sake of the story for the entire series to play the entire game on easy mode. Mm-hmm. Because it's not worth trying to even go through on normal because it's so up and down, and like the things you can do to like improve yourself are not like interactive or like not responsive, or like it's just like complex and stupid and frustrating. So I mean, as far as the storytelling goes, it's interesting. There's some good storytelling moments, and I like having that background now that I'm playing Inquisition. Mm-hmm. But the gameplay is so awful. The graphics are pretty awful too, but that's okay. So I'd say I think I kind of lost track of where I was going with all this, but I do think that it's okay to play games even if you know they're not good, mm-hmm. and I think it's okay to not play games even when you know they're good. Okay. Yeah.
So then it's just about like getting the most enjoyment out of your gaming experience.
Yeah, I think that's what game developers are supposed to be creating, you know? It's like the same thing for books. If I'm reading a book and I don't like the book and someone's like, well, the twist ending's great, I'm like, I don't care. It was their job to keep me hooked until the ending. If your ending's the best part, you have to do something to keep me hooked till the end. Mm-hmm. Or else, what are you doing, you know?
Well, I don't know. I think sometimes I haven't played a lot of narrative-driven games, so I can't really give an example for this, but I think besides maybe Severed, which I guess is, I mean, it's not really a narrative-driven game, but the narrative is, like, relevant to the game. I don't know, I think sometimes something can happen that can make it all click a little bit and make you, like, gain an appreciation for that beginning part. So that's, sure. I think that's one, like, counter-argument I would pose to you. Because sometimes it's not so much that, oh, well, now the game went from not being a good game to being a good game. I think it's more like sometimes the game's base maybe isn't as digestible or inviting or intriguing, but, like, how it builds can, like, it's not so much that it suddenly went from being bad to good, like, oh, this was glitchy and now it's, like, good again or something like that, or it was really basic and now it's super complex. I think, like, the systems can build. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. So I think in that way it's not so much that it, like, gets better, but, like, now all the pieces are kind of, like, making sense and they all, like, work together now.
Sure. And I think that there's a case for that. But I also think as complicated and difficult as it might be for game developers to really get a sense for this, you know, because they see their games from far away. So, like it's hard to get an understanding of really how it's going to be experienced by a player. Mm-hmm. But they're, like, even for, what was the name of the game that you played?
Severed?
Yeah. Even for Severed, I haven't played it. But even for Severed, from what I'm hearing from you, the actual experience, the gameplay experience was not very enjoyable. You would have quit if it wasn't for your review. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of a failure on the game maker's part, because if you need them to see the ending for everything to click, that's fine. You know, I like an ending that sort of draws the pieces together. You have to do something that keeps people there to the ending. You have to, or else they're never going to get to the ending. Yeah. And so then it's a half-played game, but they're only experiencing the first half. And if you only experience the first half, it's probably a bad game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I don't know. That's for me kind of where I'm at, but I also get that if you make the game, you're like, everyone will understand, you know, when they put all the pieces together. I get it, like, because I write and, you know, whatever, I'm like, I get it. Because we all think we have everyone understands our master plan, but they don't. I just, like, would like to assume, I would like gamers also to assume that we are just, like, kind of stupid. Like, you really need us to get it to the end. Mm-hmm. Like, because that's the whole point of what you're doing. I don't know.
What's the last game you played where you were like, I'm not going to finish this, or like, I'm not going, what was the last time you had that experience?
Recently.
Yeah, okay, go for it. What was it?
It was, I think I talked about this a little bit on the video, but it's okay. The Harvest Moon game that I reviewed for Bit Cultures. And again, Harvest Moon is not the kind of game where you have to play the entire thing to really get an entire sense of it. But I did not play nearly as much as that as I normally would for a review. And that's because it was such a struggle to even get through the amount that I got through. It was like, Like, I was literally, like, groaning out loud trying to play this game. Like, I hated it that much. So that was my most recent one. So people can feel free to check out my review. I feel like I was a little harsh, but, like, it's kind of accurate. So it's just really horrible. And it convinced me to never play another Natsume-created Harvest Moon game. I'm going to the people that they split off from, because that's why it stopped. Just because they lost the whole other...
Oh, Stardew Valley. You know, it's coming to Xbox One.
Yeah,
really
oh
soon.
no, I know.
Yeah, I saw that.
Stardew Valley actually is completely different. It's an indie developer.
Mm-hmm.
But then Story of Seasons is the people who used to help make the Harvest Moon games, and they left. And then I think it was Natsume, who's the one that slept over. They're like, fine, we don't need you. We can do it ourselves. And it's like, no, you can't. This is a horrible game. You really can't do this yourselves. So they're still trying to make the games. And then the real masterminds behind the Harvest Moon games are like, we're over here making Story of Seasons. So I'm just going to play those from now on. I haven't played any yet, but I have high hopes. And if those suck, I'm going to cry. I'm literally going to cry because I love those games. Anyway, what was your most recent one that you...
That got really, really dark.
It always gets a little dark with me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. I think I play so few games that I often do just try to, like, see them through. And if I already spent the money, I'm like, well, I'm gonna finish this so I can say that I finished it and see the little end credits. I think... the last game, I can't remember the name of it because I didn't know where the conversation was going to go and that I would need to know the name of it, but it's an indie game. It's very like, and I also, a reason I didn't finish this game was a couple of reasons. One, I forgot the name of it, so when I remember the name, I'll like write it in this video up in the corner or something, but it's like this indie game. It's free to play, it's on Steam, and like it's basically like kind of like this weird like psychedelic thing, like you're in... Like, the music's really good of the game, but, like, you're in, like, this train station, and you're, like, walking through, and you're, like, trying to pick up pieces for this ticket, and you're, like, talking to people, and people are saying really weird stuff, and it's got some really interesting dialogue, and I was intrigued by that game, but I didn't pursue it right away. Like, I kind of put it on the back burner, because, one, I'm, like, I think I'm just gonna, like, do this for, like, a YouTube thing, because I didn't feel like I would get enough out of it as a player individually that I would just want to do it and not for, like, the sake of, like, you know, let me put this up on YouTube and get it out or something like that, and I'll see what people think or, like, kind of talk through, like, what I'm thinking is working in the game. Yeah, it wasn't fun for me because the mechanics were just, like, I don't know. It just, like, the game, like, itself didn't flow right for me mechanically, and that might be because I game on a Mac, and at first I wasn't using a mouse because I think you have to, if I'm remembering the game right, you have to, like, it's very mouse controlled in terms of like movement, and I think a little bit with like some keys, but it's not like a WASD thing either, or like so I think the controls just felt a little funky for me, like gaming on a Mac, and then at first just trying to game with my trackpad, and then like getting my mouse and then connect it. And then by the time I did all that, I was kind of like, I'll just do this later for something else.
Right.
Yeah, some of those I really like playing like weird experimental stuff, but a lot of times it can be like not the most enjoyable gaming experience. I think a good example of that is this game I played on itch.io, which was like totally just a joke goof game. It was called I'm Dead, Where Are My Keys? I played it like months ago. And it hurt to look at. Like it like literally gave me a headache playing it. Like it was terrible. And I played that for like 30 minutes or an hour. So I think like with really weird experimental games, those are usually where I kind of am like,
maybe not.
Yeah, but even though some of those, I think I'm just like obsessed with kind of seeing it through and then just seeing like, I think also for me to really be able to critique something, even if it is just like on a casual level, like let me just talk about this game. Like, I like want to know what else happens so that I can fully, if you're not a good game, I can fully tear you apart on multiple levels rather than just be like I didn't finish it. And then sometimes too you get like, if you get like a third through for me, I'm like I might as well just see this through. You know, it's whatever. So yeah, it doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it's usually with that kind of experimental, strange indie games that I was kind of just playing just to see like maybe if this is a diamond in the rough kind of thing. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at for that. I still feel like as far as the question of can you say a game is good before you finish it, I think you maybe can if the game is like very mechanically driven and does not hint at building on those mechanics. So like the famous example of Sunset Overdrive. I haven't really played a lot through that game, but like I kind of already I have a strong feeling that these are the game mechanics, and it's like parkour, zombie stuff, and shooting, and I don't see that like changing drastically over the course of time. And since I like those pieces, I'm like, all right, this is a good game, and I don't really feel like I need to fully play it through to be able to say it to people. So I think when a game is like simplistic enough in like, here's what this game is, and what you see here is basically everything you're going to get. It's just going to kind of be like in different environments and with different missions and with different weapons. That's when I feel like I can say like, all right, this is what this is, and it's good or not.
Yeah, I think that, and for me, it does depend on what kind of game it is, because if it's narrative versus whether it's mechanic, like you say, you know, if it's a narrative and I'm enjoying the narrative, I will push through mechanics I don't like.
Okay.
So that for me is a big one. But also, if I like the mechanics of a shitty narrative, it doesn't matter. I won't keep playing it.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. If it's a bad, like if it's got like just the worst. If it's supposed to be story driven and it has like, horrible dialogue and a horrible plot and whatever, then I won't follow it. If it's not supposed to be story driven, like Resident Evil, it's not terribly story driven. It's like, you know, whatever. The dialogue is classically the worst. That's part of the enjoyment of it, actually. But like, the dialogue is horrible, but it's not supposed to be good dialogue. Like if you know, claim your like value on one particular thing and you don't deliver on that, like I'm out. You know.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm a little petty. I'm probably a little pettier than other people when it comes to games. And I tried to be open to like changing my opinions on games. If someone says try this again, but that's more recent. That's not something I've always done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It can be difficult. Yeah, it can be really rough playing a game that you don't. I mean, sometimes I have a hard time playing games that I like or that I'm okay with, that I think are decent baseline.
Right. Well, it's just a mood thing also, and it's like.
So I'm like, I just want this to be over, so I can say I finished it.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not like crazily enjoying it. But yeah, I mean, usually I like to say for the most part that I find at least a little something that'll be interesting or kind of keep me engaged in it. Whether or not I'm playing it for myself or like playing it for writing purposes. But yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag. Any final thoughts on weird like game determining or whatever you would want to call this topic?
I mean, not so much. That's about where I'm at. I'm an open book. I'm really hateful, so that's where it is. Thank you guys for tuning in for this coffee break. Make sure to give the video a thumbs up and follow us on Twitter at BitByBitGaming. I almost always mess it up.
Yeah, it's really hard
every single time. And that's it. You got anything to add?
No, I don't know. Keep checking out games. Comment below on maybe a game that you just couldn't bring yourself to finish or a game you forced yourself to finish because you just had to know the ending. Let us know what that experience is like and just kind of what your opinion is on do you like write a game off before it's over or do you see it through to the end? Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.